here's a steal. Carrington takes it all the way. And McBride got a hand on it and goes over to cool down Carrington. Got a couple of instances here where tempers have flared tonight.
In a game packed with intensity and more than a few dramatic moments, the Sun vs. Lynx matchup took a sharp turn when Kayla McBride's foul on DiJonai Carrington stopped the game dead in its tracks. It wasn't just a regular foul either. This was the kind of hit that makes the crowd audibly gasp and commentators lean into the mic with widened eyes. As the dust settled, Caitlin Clark, the star often known for her icy confidence on the court, wore a look that could only be described as shock. And if Caitlin Clark is shocked, you know something wild just went down. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The play itself started like any other, a fast break, Carrington making a run toward the basket. But then came McBride. Moving in with a speed that seemed calculated, she closed in on Carrington, her arms swinging with more than the usual intensity. What followed was a foul so vicious, it felt more like something out of a different sport entirely. Carrington mid-motion was hit hard. It was the kind of bump that made you raise an eyebrow. No, this was the kind of contact that had people in the stands checking their phones to see if there had been a rules change they'd missed. Carrington hit the floor, her body twisting midair before landing with a force that echoed through the arena. She lay there for a moment, clearly trying to piece together what had just happened, while the referees immediately blew the whistle to call the foul. McBride, looking unbothered in the way only a veteran can, casually walked away, almost as if she hadn't just sent a player crashing down in front of thousands of stunned spectators. And then the camera caught Clark's face, mouth slightly agape, eyes wide in disbelief. It's not every day that Caitlin Clark, one of the most composed and stone-faced players in the game, breaks her poker face. Yet here she was visibly rattled by the aggression on display. It was the kind of reaction that you rarely see from her, and it told everyone just how intense things had gotten on the floor. The entire arena seemed to hold its breath as Carrington stayed down, her teammates gathering around her, offering support but also trying to figure out how badly she was hurt. The tension in the air was thick enough to cover the knife, and you could feel the energy shift. Fans who had been cheering moments before were now silent, waiting for some kind of sign that everything was all right. Meanwhile, McBride, in typical McBride fashion, stood with a demeanor that screamed, "What? It was just a foul." She didn't offer much in the way of apology or concern, and that nonchalance only added fuel to the fire. The Lynx were already a physical team, but this moment took things to a whole new level. It wasn't just about the points on the board anymore. It had become personal. The Sun players were visibly rattled, and you could see them exchanging glances, silently asking each other if they were about to enter a street fight disguised as a basketball game. Caitlin Clark's reaction lingered in the minds of those watching because Clark is not someone easily shaken. Known for her steely resolve and ability to thrive under pressure, she usually has a way of brushing off anything thrown at her. Yet here, for the briefest of moments, Clark looked human, taken aback by the sheer brutality of the foul. That in itself was a storyline worth noting. The player who typically makes the highlights with her long-range shooting and smooth playmaking was now part of a very different kind of highlight reel. As Carrington was helped to her feet, the crowd erupted in a cheer of relief, but the game had already changed. It wasn't just a game of skill anymore, it was a battle. The Sun players, still shaken from the hit, had to regroup, both mentally and physically. Carrington, ever the competitor, tried to shake it off, but you could tell the foul had done more than just knock her to the ground. It had set the tone for the rest of the game. The physicality ramped up, and every player on the court knew that things had shifted. Clark, still processing the moment, got back to business quickly, but her usual swagger seemed a bit muted. She wasn't rattled per se. Caitlin Clark doesn't rattle easily, but there was an edge to her now, a seriousness that suggested she wasn't just playing for points anymore. There was something more at stake, and it wasn't just about winning. The foul had flipped a switch, turning a regular season game into something much more heated. As the game continued, the tension between the teams simmered, never quite boiling over, but always lurking beneath the surface. Carrington, despite the hit, showed no signs of backing down. If anything, the foul seemed to ignite a fire in her. She played with a grit that let everyone know she wasn't going to be intimidated. Clark, too, channeled that same energy, though in a more controlled way. There were no flashy gestures or dramatic confrontations, just a quiet intensity that hinted at the storm brewing inside her. McBride, for her part, remained largely unfazed. She played her game, and while the crowd and opposing players might have been stirred by the foul, she didn't seem particularly concerned. Whether that's because she genuinely felt it wasn't a big deal, or because she was choosing to block out the noise, is anyone's guess. Either way, it added an extra layer to the drama unfolding on the court. As the clock ticked down, the Sun rallied, determined to come back from what felt like more than just a physical blow. They were fighting against the mental toll that McBride's foul had taken on them. Every move, every shot was now infused with a sense of urgency. It wasn't just about the score. It was about pride, about not letting one player's over-the-top foul dictate the outcome of the game. Caitlin Clark, despite her initial shock, found her rhythm again. She played with the kind of precision that makes her one of the most dangerous players on the court. Her shooting was sharp, her passes were crisp, but there was still that undercurrent of intensity in everything she did. It wasn't obvious at first, but if you watched closely, you could see it. The way her movements had just a bit more force, the way her expression stayed locked in even during the timeouts. Carrington, for her part, didn't let the foul define her performance. After a brief moment to collect herself, she was right back in the mix, driving to the basket and making plays. The hit might have rattled her, but it didn't take her out of the game. If anything, it seemed to fuel her even more. The crowd, sensing that this was now more than just a contest of skill, rallied behind her every move. The foul was the kind of moment that shifts a game's momentum and sends ripples through both teams. For the Lynx, it became a symbol of their physical style of play, a message that they weren't going to back down, no matter how controversial the move might have been. For the Sun, it was a reminder that basketball isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's a battle, and you've got to be ready for anything, even a hit that leaves the crowd stunned. As the final buzzer sounded, the game had taken on a life of its own. What started as a regular season match had turned into something much more dramatic. The tension, the fouls, the reactions, all of it created an atmosphere that had everyone on the edge of their seats. The players left it all on the court, but the memory of that foul, and the way it had shifted everything, lingered long after the game ended. For Caitlin Clark, it was a moment that showed even the most composed athletes can be caught off guard. Her reaction to McBride's foul on Carrington became as much a part of the story as the game itself. It was a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a player who is usually unflappable, and it gave the game an added layer of intrigue. In a way, it was a reminder that even in a sport as fast-paced and competitive as basketball, there are still moments that can surprise even the best players in the world. The Sun vs. Lynx game may have ended, but the impact of that foul stayed with everyone who watched it. It was a moment that captured the raw emotion and intensity of the sport. A single play that turned the game on its head and left fans talking about it long after the final whistle blew. For DiJonai Carrington, it was a testament to her toughness. For Kayla McBride, a statement of the physicality she brings. And for Caitlin Clark, a rare moment of genuine shock. A reminder that sometimes even the most seasoned athletes aren't prepared for what's coming next. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.